Chapter 537 Ninephoenix worshipping Flute. What about Xiao? In fact, she also possessed twin martial souls. Yes, Xiao, the girl who usually kept a low profile, was a soul master with twin martial souls. Among Shrek's 7 monsters, she was the third person, other than Huo and Tang Clan, who had twin martial souls. They were the cream of the crop among the new students of Shrek Academy back then. Even though Xiao rarely sparred with anyone, that did not mean she was weak. Under the powerful effects of the Kyangan fortune pill, her cultivation had improved tremendously. Also, she was the direct disciple of Elder Sun, who was an actual ultimate Douluo. If he was willing to hand his teachings over to Huo and Tang Clan, why would he not teach his final disciple? Hence, amongst everyone present, Huo was undoubtedly the person who had the most confidence in her. Seeing how Huo had given his consent, Jijuiken said, "All right, let's do it then." He became anxious as he tried to grab Xiao's arm. Xiao, you shouldn't. This is too dangerous. What am I going to do if something bad happens to you? Xiao replied casually, "Then go and find another person." He was angered by her words. "What do you mean by find another person? I only want you. Besides, you have already done that to me. You must take responsibility." His words hit everyone like a bolt from the blue. After hearing Hikaitu's words, Shusanchi immediately pulled Jiang Nanan back as they returned to listen to the juicy gossip. Bei's eyes also widened in disbelief, while Huo and Tang Wutong looked at Xiao with a surprised expression. Xiao immediately became the center of attention. She started blushing as she glared at Hikaitu in a vicious manner. "Can you not spout rubbish? You're spoiling my spiritual state. You're going to be responsible if I lose later. And stop asking weird questions like who will be responsible for you and who did what with you. If you continue to ask stupid questions like that, I will ignore you." After seeing Xiao blush, Hikaitu frantically said, "How can you fight against Juiken when you're so flustered now? Come, let's go and cultivate by the side to calm your mind and heart down." As he spoke, he was about to pull Xiao away. However, his pull was ineffective. Xiao's feet seemed to be rooted to the ground. Of course, Hikaitu would not use his real strength to pull her away. However, he could sense the determination in her to spar with Jijuiken. As he lowered his head to look at her, he was surprised by the look on her face. Xiao's eyes had grown calm, and the flustered look on her face had disappeared. What was left was a look of calmness and determination. Xiao, you. K2, Xiao's voice was very gentle. "I know you treat me well and are afraid that I will get hurt. I understand how you feel towards me, but you must know that I will not only become your wife in the future. At the same time, I will still be a member of Shrek's 7 monsters. All these years, I have seen how Yuao has fought countless battles in the north and the south. All of you have also been busy with projects within the Tang Sect. But what about me? Under your protection, I've been like a bird who is unable to spread her wings. I know you care for me and dote on me, but I do not want to be a flower in a greenhouse. And I have the abilities to not be a flower in a greenhouse. I can stay strong without your protection. I am not just your lover and partner. In times of war, I can be your companion who can fight alongside you and help everyone. I have never cut myself any slack on my training in all these years, and I train hard because I want to help everyone on the battlefield. But all of you have subconsciously excluded me from any dangerous or challenging tasks. I want this to stop, and I want to prove to all of you that I, Xiao, also possess the ability to become a true member of Shrek's 7 monsters. So please don't stop me, K2. Let me prove it to you. All right." Xiao's words silenced everyone as they started to ask themselves if that was truly the case. Jiang Nanan empathized with her words most strongly. Other than Tang Wutong, she was the only female among Shrek's 7 monsters along with Xiao. Even though Tang Wutong was able to fight alongside Huo and had experienced so much, both Jiang Nanan and Xiao were always living under the care and protection of everyone else. Hence, after hearing Xiao's words, which resonated strongly in her heart, she let go of Shusanchi's hand and walked towards Xiao. "Xiao, I support you." Xiao held Jiang Nanan's hand and smiled. She was truly beautiful. Hikaitu was a little dazed after staring at her beautiful smile. It took him a while before he shook it off and revealed an understanding smile. He sighed before saying, "I am sorry, Xiao. I must have neglected your feelings." Xiao let go of Jiang Nanan's hand before walking towards Hikaitu. She actually dove into his embrace in front of everyone. "No, K2. I am really fortunate and blissful to have you. To be honest, I actually hesitated back then when I chose you, but afterwards, I understood how right I was to have chosen you. K2, I really enjoy receiving the care and concern you have for me, but I am so sad to see how hard you work every day. I really want to help you." Hikaitu hugged her tightly as he stared at her lovingly. Jijuiken, who had been standing by the side, suddenly slapped his forehead and muttered, "Why do I suddenly feel like I'm the antagonist of this show?" After hearing his words, everyone burst into laughter. Bei smiled and replied, "Brother Ju, you are truly the biggest antagonist in our Tang Sect. Who asked you to challenge people to fights every day?" Jijuiken sighed, "I don't really have a choice. In order to improve, I must find people to spar with. I am terribly sorry if I have inconvenienced you, but I will not change my ways, and will continue to challenge all of you to fights." "Then bring it on." Xiao escaped from Hikaitu's embrace, and her eyes were already burning with her desire to win. Jijuiken nodded and said, "Xiao, I will not go easy on you because you're a girl. Who needs you to go easy on me? We don't even know who will be victorious yet." As she spoke, she moved to a position that placed her moderately far away from Jijuiken and opposite him. Now, no one would stop them from sparring. They slowly moved back to give them space. Tang Wutong whispered into Huo's ear, "If Xiao loses, it will be my turn next, okay?" Huo smiled. "Are you itching to get into a battle after dealing with the 2 evil soul masters?" Tang Wutong waved her little fist in front of Huo and said, "Nope, I just want you men to know that us ladies are not that easy to bully. We are not weaker than men." Huo smiled. "Why do I have the feeling that I am your real target instead of Brother G?" Tang Wutong raised her head and replied, "If I were to challenge you to a duel, would you accept it?" Huo was shocked. "You're not being serious, right?" Tang Wutong replied, "Why not? Yuao, don't you feel like you can't find your own limits after our previous closed-door cultivation? It's bad for us to not be able to accurately determine how strong we are. We will not be able to decide on the most effective way to deal with our enemies. Actually, Brother G's cultivation method has many areas that are worth learning from. Regardless of what abilities we possess, we are only able to truly understand those abilities by sparring and exercising them." Huo mulled over her words before saying, "What you say makes sense, but I don't think I can get myself to attack you." Tang Wutong burst into laughter and said, "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you. Are you so certain that you can beat me?" Huo asked with raised eyebrows. "Of course," Tang Wutong answered proudly. "Don't forget I'm already a titled Douluo, while you're still a soul Douluo. But I also have a soul core." Huo replied, "This makes me pretty similar to a titled Douluo." Tang Wutong said, "If you don't agree with me, you can always challenge me." Huo said, "So be it. Let's do it after Xiao and Brother G are done." During their conversation, the way they stared into each other's eyes seemed as though they were about to launch into a brawl, but it only stayed that way for a short while before both of them burst into laughter. Yes. No matter what, they would never really fight with one another. Nonetheless, both of them were still fairly competitive. In fact, they were both really excited at the prospect of sparring with one another. It was exactly because they understood each other so well that they could not be certain who would emerge victorious. Jijuiken and Xiao faced each other and, without communicating, both of them took a few steps back. Since it was a proper spar, it had to be fair. Both of them retreated until there were about 50 meters between them. Xiao specialized in mid-range combat, while Jijuiken was most adept at close quarters. If the distance was too far, it would not be fair to Jijuiken. If it were too close, it would be unfair to Xiao. 50 meters was just nice for both of them. Both Jijuiken and Xiao stood upright and stared at each other. Xiao once again radiated a calm aura, as though she was becoming one with her surroundings. This time, Jijuiken was not the only one who felt that Xiao's abilities were unpredictable. Even her other companions could sense it. Bei could not help but nod. "That's right. Regardless of whether it's Xiao Xiao or Jiang Nanan, all of us have grown a lot. Even they are no longer little girls who everyone needs to protect. They can all take on the world themselves. Xiao Xiao's soul rings started to rise from her feet. Her first soul ring was yellow, but the subsequent ones were all black. All 7 of her rings hung quietly around her as a flute appeared in her hands. The first martial soul which she released was not her main martial soul, the 3-live soul crush cauldron, but her second martial soul, the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. Xiao Xiao waved her Ninephoenix worshipping flute, and her 7 soul rings were drawn by the motion of the flute, and contracted before falling onto it. Ji Juoken, who was standing opposite her, unsheathed his judgment sword. Just as he had said, he would not go easy on his opponents because of their gender. Ji Juoken revealed a determined look on his face as he wielded his sword with both hands. As he pointed the tip of the sword to the ground, he was able to conceal his aura. At that very instant, everyone could sense that his life energy had disappeared. Even though he was standing right in front of them, it was as if he was not there at all. Even Hua Yuao, who possessed incredibly powerful spiritual energy, could not detect him. Even though they were not able to sense his presence, they could sense the energy from his sword. The judgment sword might not be reflecting any light, but gave off the impression of a volcano that was about to erupt at any moment. Xiao Xiao had never once sparred with Ji Juoken. This time, she finally experienced the immense pressure that one would have to face by standing before this sword fanatic. No wonder no one wanted to spar with him. His sword intent was simply out of this world. Before making her move, Xiao Xiao already felt as though her entire person was imprisoned within a huge sword. And within the huge sword, there seemed to be hundreds and thousands of smaller swords which threatened to shred her to pieces. What a powerful sword intent. Is this how it feels to go up against the sword of the sword fanatic? At that instant, Xiao Xiao emanated a mysterious glow. Her small figure suddenly gave off an impressive aura which resembled that of a humongous mountain. At that moment, it seemed as though her body could decide the fate of her country. Even Ji Juoken's incredibly powerful sword intent was shattered when it reached a distance of 10 meters from her. Xiao Xiao's body was enveloped by a black glow which contained countless runes. Ji Juoken almost lost his balance after his sword intent was shattered. His face twitched a little after realizing what had just happened. He was seldom caught off guard, even when he faced Hua Yuao. He had toned down his sword intent and no longer released it overtly. Yes, Xiao Xiao had actually won their opening battle, in which Ji Juoken had pitted his sword intent against her aura. Xiao Xiao's aura could only be described as overwhelming. It could overwhelm people, and even overwhelm the destiny and aura of a country. That was the power of the cauldron. The true cauldron could suppress and overwhelm any aura. Hence, regardless of how powerful the opponent's aura was, there was only one possible outcome. Their aura would be overwhelmed and suppressed by the cauldron. Hence, Xiao Xiao was near invincible when it came to comparing the strength of one's aura. That was the mystical power of the 3-live soul crush cauldron. Despite releasing her Ninephoenix worshipping flute, Xiao Xiao used the power of her 3-live soul crush cauldron. This showed that she had developed incredible control over 2 martial souls. At this very instant, her eyes brightened like shiny stars as she released a frightening amount of spiritual power. Just when Ji Juoken was trying to find his balance, she started blowing her Ninephoenix worshipping flute. A sad but melodic tune started to emerge from the end of her flute. The air around them started to become very viscous. The first soul ring on Xiao Xiao's flute started to sparkle as its glow pulsed. The viscous air appeared to have been saturated by boundless fluid. Even the people who were spectating from the outside felt weighed down by the heavy air around them. Delay. It was the first technique of the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. Even though it was exactly the same technique, its power was already completely different from what it was the last time she had showed it to the group. Back then, when Xiao Xiao executed this skill against her opponent, it could only slightly delay her opponent's movements. But now, her soul skill was actually capable of making people struggle to move. Ji Juoken stood there without moving. His aura might have been suppressed by Xiao Xiao previously, but he chose not to move even when he was up against her delay. Since he was not moving, the soul skill did not affect him much. Xiao Xiao's eyes remained focused on Ji Juoken as she changed the flute's melody. The melancholic tune suddenly became gentle and bright. As the new tune emerged from the flute, one could see ripples of jade green light emanating from Xiao Xiao's body. These ripples were like circles of thread which expanded towards Ji Juoken as they attempted to entangle him. Initially, they appeared to just be circles of light, but when they got closer to Ji Juoken, they suddenly solidified to become material. They seemed to be like rings which were trying to bind and trap him. Nonetheless, Ji Juoken chose to stay where he was, but just when the rings were about to ensnare him, they shattered to bits and pieces and fell to the ground. They were unable to restrict him at all. The Ninephoenix worshipping flute's second soul skill, binding ring. This soul skill could be executed in a simple or complex fashion. It possessed a powerful binding ability, but its powers seemed to have lost their effect when they came into contact with Ji Juoken's sword intent. Xiao Xiao's face did not reveal any emotional change after witnessing the disintegration of her binding rings. She carried on with her flute playing as more rings started to gravitate towards Ji Juoken. Other than this, she did not seem to be casting any other soul skill. It appeared that she was hoping to drag the battle on in this manner. After witnessing what Xiao Xiao was doing, Hua Yuan nodded from the side of the sparring area. Xiao Xiao's strategy was sound. By suppressing Ji Juoken's aura with her advantage right from the start, Ji Juoken was unable to increase the power and range of his aura. Aura was an extremely important component within Ji Juoken's sword intent. If his aura were to be increased to its maximum, his attack would become incredibly piercing and penetrating. What Xiao Xiao was doing now was dragging out the battle to expend his soul power and determination. It was important to note that Xiao Xiao's soul power was not weaker than Ji Juoken's. Even though Ji Juoken was almost at rank 90, his martial soul was just a normal martial soul. He had only become strong because of his unique understanding of sword intent and the judgment sword, powerful class 8 soul tool, which he wielded. Compared to Ji Juoken, Xiao Xiao possessed twin martial souls. Her second martial soul had 7 rings, and that would only strengthen her first martial soul. Even though her total amount of soul power might be less than Ji Juoken's, it was only slightly less. Besides, the possession of a strong martial soul would allow a soul master to recover more quickly. When it came to this, Xiao Xiao definitely had an advantage. Hence, even though it seemed unwise for her to drag the battle out, it was actually a good move. Ji Juoken had no chance to showcase the explosiveness of his sword intent. If he were to force his sword intent towards Xiao Xiao, he would expose himself to her attacks. In fact, as of now, Xiao Xiao did not have any flaws or gaps which he could take advantage of. Hence, Ji Juoken seemed to be at a disadvantage currently. As their battle wore on, everyone held their breath as they waited for the next event to unfold. Ji Juoken's soul rings were unspectacular. They were just the ordinary soul rings. Nonetheless, he seemed very calm and collected as he stood still where he was. It was as though there was nothing in this world which he needed to be concerned about. Even though Xiao Xiao looked like a girl who would be flustered easily, she was similarly calm and collected. She might not appear to have frozen still like Ji Juoken, but she was still very stable and relaxed, as though everything was under her control. She continued to apply pressure on Ji Juoken, keeping him from releasing his aura. Bei Bei, Hikaito and Shu Sanchi revealed expressions of disbelief. They were certain that they might not be able to face Ji Juoken with this amount of composure. Xiao Xiao, have you really become this strong? Jiang Nanan clenched her fists as she rooted for Xiao Xiao in her heart. She was especially happy to see her showcase her true abilities. Very quickly, 5 minutes passed. Both of them were still in their original positions. If they were to continue in this fashion, it would probably take close to a day before they would finish expending all of their soul power. Ji Juoken frowned as he looked at the situation before him. This was not the feeling he wanted. He would have preferred his opponent to pressure him directly. Instead, Xiao Xiao was using her binding rings to harass him. He felt as though he was sinking into a marsh instead of fighting a fearsome battle. However, he was unable to detect any flaws or gaps in his opponent's defense. If he were to strike haphazardly, he would expose himself to her. However, he knew it was definitely disadvantageous for him to drag the battle on like this. If there's no gap or hole in your defense, I shall find one, or even create one. So what if there's a hole in my defense? Let's see who will strike first. After making up his mind, Ji Juoken suddenly took a step forward with his left foot before stamping violently on the ground. The silence stopped instantly as an unbelievably sharp sword intent formed from Ji Juoken's body. The sword intent was greyish black, and its sudden appearance shattered all of the binding rings which had just been released by the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. That powerful sword intent flew away from Ji Juoken and zoomed towards Xiao Xiao. In the blink of an eye, it was already right in front of her, and was ready to tear her apart. However, the moment Ji Juoken made his move, Xiao Xiao had already reacted to it. The flute in her hand suddenly released a piercing howl, following which, her body became illusory as she split in two. Even though the sword intent had locked onto her, it went straight through her illusory figure, and did not harm her at all. After that, it was Xiao Xiao's time to retaliate. Right after the greyish black sword intent passed through her, a jade green image flew out of the Ninephoenix worshipping flute and reached Ji Juoken almost instantly. Ji Juoken slashed the judgment sword upwards, and a formidable sword aura steamrolled towards the image of the Jade Green Phoenix. The sword aura seemed to embody justice as it collided head-on with the Green Phoenix. However, the unexpected happened. Instead of shattering, the Green Phoenix magically melted and flowed along the sides of the sword aura as it continued to travel towards Ji Juoken. That's right. It flowed like a fluid before the Green Phoenix splashed onto Ji Juoken's body. At this juncture, everyone had started to gain a better appreciation of the situation. Even though Xiaoxiao could not match Ji Juoken, she was probably not too far away from him. There was also an additional reason why she dared to challenge him today. It was because he was not familiar with her. In fact, not many people within Tang Sect knew what soul skills Xiaoxiao possessed. After witnessing this Ninephoenix worshipping Flute soul skills, Bei, Shusanqi and the rest were all surprised. What is this soul skill? It seems like it's going to be very difficult to get away from the green light. Ji Juoken definitely experienced the difficulty firsthand. When he first saw the Jade Green Phoenix fly towards him, he thought that this would be an attack type soul skill. However, he knew his guess was wrong the moment the sword aura pierced through the Jade Green Phoenix. He expected his sharp sword aura to shatter the Phoenix upon contact. However, the soul skill did not end with its shattering. In fact, it had been agitated. The stream of Jade Green light, which was very much like a viscous fluid, landed on Ji Juoken's body instantly. It seemed to have been drawn to his sword aura. However, Ji Juoken knew that it was only drawn to him because Xiaoxiao had locked it onto him. Otherwise, it would not have come straight to him. As the Jade Green light melted into his body, he felt his entire body become heavier. It was as though he had just put on a 1,000-pound suit of armor and had lost all of his agility. In fact, he even realized that his blood flow and soul power had become sluggish. It was as though his entire person had become very sluggish and slow. What a powerful soul skill. What exactly is it? This was a question which only Xiaoxiao could answer. Its name was Phoenix Seal, a sealing technique from the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. This soul skill was very powerful because of how indestructible it was. Unless it was obliterated on all fronts, it was practically unstoppable. Once it came into contact with an opponent, he or she would be in serious trouble. The Jade Green Phoenix Seal would stick itself to the person like cotton candy. It would require an unreal amount of soul power to dissolve. Xiaoxiao had been trying to expend Ji Juoken's soul power right from the beginning. Now that her seal had landed on him, it would only accelerate the rate at which he was forced to burn his soul power. After landing the seal on Ji Juoken's body successfully, Xiaoxiao was over the moon, and the tune which she was blowing with her flute became even more melodic. Warm halos were now being released from the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. These halos transformed into Jade Green Phoenixes as they flew towards Ji Juoken. What a remarkable control type soul skill. Everyone thought to themselves as they marveled at Xiaoxiao's technique. Xiaoxiao's Ninephoenix worshipping flute could have been equipped with attacking type soul skills, but from the looks of the soul skills which she had executed, all of them seemed to be control type. This also meant that she had dedicated her entire second martial soul to control type soul skills. It was apparent that she chose to do this for the team. As an owner of twin martial souls, her 3 live soul crush cauldron was already a defense type control type martial soul. If she were to only care about herself, she could have dedicated her second martial soul to attacking type soul skills. This would have made her a more balanced soul master. But Xiaoxiao did not choose to do that. Instead, she chose to focus purely on control type soul skills on her second martial soul. This was a team-oriented decision because her boyfriend, Iketu, was already skilled in attacking type soul skills. It would make perfect sense for her to focus on control type skills to complement him and improve their overall fighting power. At this instant, Ji Juoken's eyes suddenly brightened. He knew very well what kind of predicament he was in. Since Xiaoxiao did not stop releasing the Phoenix seals, this meant that the effects of her seals could be compounded. While he remained there, Ji Juoken's aura suddenly changed. An indescribably sharp aura suddenly surged out from his body. At that very instant, even the light from his judgment sword was covered by the aura surging out from him. Ji Juoken had transformed into a long sword with an unparalleled aura exploding from his body. Xiaoxiao's eyes were blurred by the sudden outburst of Ji Juoken's aura, following which, Ji Juoken made his move. Countless sword auras surged from his body as though they were gushing out from every pore. A faint green energy was also ejected from his body along with the sword auras. The first Phoenix seal had been broken. Ji Juoken lifted the judgment sword as though he was conducting the millions of sword auras which had been released from his body. Immediately, they formed a powerful wave which swept towards Xiaoxiao. The greyish-black sword auras were like a hurricane which swept across the ground that separated Xiaoxiao and Ji Juoken. The Jade Green Phoenixes which stood in the way of the huge hurricane were instantly shattered as they vanished into thin air. Ji Juoken was able to turn the tables in a single move. Also, he was able to lock on his aura onto Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao's face was visibly paler. She could no longer sense her energy from Ji Juoken's body. Naturally, her methods would no longer be effective on him. Instead, she felt an unparalleled murderous intent from him. This murderous intent did not have a material form, but Xiaoxiao was certain that it existed. At that very instant, she felt as though every single pore in her body had been shut by the killing intent exhibited by Ji Juoken. The effect of the intent was so strong that her flute playing stopped momentarily, following which, Ji Juoken made his move. He flew towards Xiaoxiao at lightning speed like a sharp sword tearing up the sky. This was Executioner's Blade, Ji Juoken's most commonly used ability. It was a soul skill which he had invented by himself. This soul skill was often able to create miracles during battles, and had an attacking power that was unparalleled by other soul masters on his level. Xiaoxiao was startled by the sight before her, but she did not step back. This was undoubtedly a wise decision. She stopped playing the Ninephoenix worshipping flute, and instead she waved it in the air as though it were a short baton. After waving her flute, her delicate body once again became illusory. It was apparent that she had used the same soul skill which she had used to avoid Ji Juoken's previous attack. Phoenix substitution. In addition, the 7th soul ring on the Ninephoenix worshipping flute also started to shine. As the Executioner's Blade collided with its target, once again, it only managed to slash at Xiaoxiao's illusory figure. The most powerful thing about the Phoenix substitution was its ability to allow its user to break free from a lock on by his or her opponent. Even Ji Juoken's sword intent could not strike Xiaoxiao. However, this time round, Ji Juoken was attacking with his own body. Hence, he stopped right next to Xiaoxiao's real body after destroying the illusory figure. The judgment sword's light became more intense as dense black energy instantly surged around it. As Ji Juoken released his fearsome sword aura, the air around it started to crack and shatter. Ji Juoken knew that no soul skill could be continuously executed without stopping. Hence, he launched his attack precisely at the moment when Xiaoxiao was no longer able to use her Phoenix substitution to evade his attack. However, something unexpected happened. Xiaoxiao's body transformed into a streak of green light before melting into the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. Following which, the flute released a bright phoenix screech as it opened its own humongous pair of green wings and transformed into a flying green phoenix. At the same time, a large green ring descended from the sky and bound Ji Juoken's body. Even though it was shattered almost immediately by Ji Juoken's dominating sword aura, it gave the green phoenix sufficient time to fly away. The green phoenix was actually the Ninephoenix worshipping flute's martial soul true body. Once again, Xiaoxiao was able to surprise her peers with her soul skills. The flying green phoenix extended its wings before flapping them intensely as the 6th soul ring on its body started to glow. Following which, a green light descended from the sky. These green shadows looked like pillars from afar. However, once they landed, everyone realized that they were replicas of the Ninephoenix worshipping flute. Every single one of them had been magnified by at least 10 times. The carvings of the 9 phoenixes on it were particularly delicate. After landing on the ground, those pillars became frozen, as though they were structures which had been there all along. Ji Juoken's body was originally poised to chase after Xiaoxiao. However, after the pillars landed, he found that he could not move. Phoenix pillars. This was her 6th soul skill. The effect of these pillars was incredibly strong. After the skill was executed, there seemed to be an incredible attraction wherever the pillars covered. This force of attraction was not gravity, but sound waves. It was an unbelievably strong sound wave which was similar to the cry of a phoenix. The sound wave exploded from bottom to top within the regions where the pillars lined themselves up. Every single pillar was producing a deafening sound wave which could cause a person to lose his or her concentration. If a weaker cultivator were to find himself within the pillars, he would probably have been shattered by the sound waves. As the green phoenix in the sky flapped its wings again, the sound waves released by the phoenix pillars grew in intensity. If one were to pay attention to them, one would notice faint ripples in the air. Attacking with sound waves was the Ninephoenix worshipping flute's true trump card. All its previous soul skills used sound waves, but their use was not as apparent as the phoenix pillars. This time around, Ji Juoken was truly bound by the sound waves, as his body trembled under their effect. The sound waves were everywhere, and there was no chance of evading them. It was the first time he was going up against an attack like this, and he could not adapt to it in time. While his body was shaking under the powerful sound waves, he was busy trying to muster the sword auras around him as he tried to free himself from the impact of the sound waves. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.